Yeah, you froze for a
Uh,
second there, but you
yeah.
seem good now.
Okay. Hi everyone. I'm super excited to host Oliver Thomas. He's co-founder of Facit, and he has been running ATN network. I think it started during pandemic and it kept on rising, and I've been following his journey for a while. Had a chance to meet in person in London in one of his Pachakucha events. So that's also another incredible initiative. So you're doing a lot of things and a lot of cool things. So I wanted to have you on the show to talk about your story. Thanks a lot for your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's I was looking forward to this. I always do the podcast, but I feel like I can't remember the last time I was on one. So yeah, it's good to be on one.
Amazing. Ollie, what would be the three career highlights for you from college till this date?
Good question. Straight out of the gate. Okay, so one of them has to be landing my first job as an architect. So I graduated in the financial crisis, basically. So I graduated my undergraduate in 2009 and my master's in 2012. So it was kind of like the worst time to become an architect. So landing my first job as an architect, it seemed like a kind of challenge just to do that. So that's definitely one big milestone. Two, I guess I've also got to say, finally passing becoming an architect, right? I have to put that in, but although it was more of a kind of like when I got the email, I was like, oh, done. That's like 8 years of whatever. And then I think one of them has to be getting the job at Big for a few reasons. It wasn't just getting a job at Big, which I'll be totally open. It was my dream firm I wanted to work for. I was a huge fan of big stuff. But the scenario I was in was it was a moonshot scenario. So I was in America. My visa was running out and it was not the kind of visa you could renew. You needed a new one. So I interviewed with like a couple firms, and it came down to two of the firms I really wanted to work for, Big and Shop Architects. And Big was not as well known for doing these kind of longer term visas. So it was just an impossible scenario. I'd also like I was dating someone at the time, so I kind of wanted to come back as well. There's a bit of a love story there as well. I wanted to come back to the US and I had the interview with Big and I was like, "Oh, this is like mission impossible." And even when I got the job and got the you know, they were willing to do the visa, getting the visa was
Mm.
not that easy. So that was definitely a huge milestone for many reasons. And, it kind of worked out well. The love story didn't work out, but the professional story did. So yeah.
Lots of climax and ups and downs.
Yeah, that feels like life as an architect and especially someone that's trying to get into business and be a entrepreneur. And, yeah, it's ups and downs.
Have you ever had like quarter life crisis at like what profession or what should I do? And like in those down moments, who were your mentors or what guided you for the next big decision?
So I think one of the most fortunate things I've had is I've really wanted to be an architect from a very young age, and I have never ever really looked back on that decision, despite you know salaries are not that great. Yeah, at some point as an architect, you're probably going to get made redundant again. Touch wood, not yet,
Mm.
but it's probably on the horizon somewhere. So yeah, I've never really questioned. Actually, there was one point I think when like I said, I graduated in 2009, and I remember going to a big architecture firm, which was like a big milestone to get an interview with them. And I turned up, and the guy clearly forgot that I was like, I'm in for an interview. And because that day they had let like 40 or 50 architects go that day, and then I turned up for like, hey, I'm here for an interview. So it wasn't great timing. It's fair to say I didn't get the job because I'm
Mm.
not sure if there was a job anymore. And it was really difficult to get a job. And at that point, I ended up working as a builder down in Cornwall. I was just a laborer, like making cement and carrying all the shit around the site. And like, it was actually quite well paid for my age and the time. And at that point, I did question like, oh, maybe I'm, didn't quite cut it for architecture. I tried to get a job as an estate agent as well, and I couldn't get that job either. I was like, right, fuck it, let's stick to architecture. And I actually learned loads being a like a builder, a laborer, and then ended up saving up that money and I went traveling for a bit. And I think, it really broadened my horizons and, saw a lot more things. I wouldn't say I haven't had that midlife crisis yet. Still in my 30s, so I'm coming up to it. But you always have ups and downs, like I said, the personal side of me living in the US, didn't work out. And that was a tricky decision. Like, do I come back to the UK? Do you stay in the US and like try and build a new life and all this kind of stuff? So yeah, professionally, I've never questioned it,
Yeah,
but there's definitely been ups and downs. And I think when you are really clear on what your North Star is, you just stay focused on it and keep going.
I see. Who inspires you?
Who inspires me? It's a good question. I mean, obviously there's personal ones like your parents and things like that. In the professional world, of course, I'll stick to kind of architects, right? Every architect in the UK, I feel, kind of looks up to Norman Foster, right? He was like, when we were at uni, everyone was like, getting a job at Foster's is like winning the lottery. You've got the kind of Rem Koolhaases, the Zahas. I think like Bjarke once said, you go through these like romances with different architects. Of course, Bjarke Ingels was a big inspiration. I think for a couple of reasons with what always drew me to go work at Big and Bjarke was one, I never really bought the architecture fluff. Like it's so like hyper intellectual, bullshit
Yeah.
basically. And whenever you look up architects like Rem Koolhaas and all this kind of stuff, it's really deep and it's usually a picture of an architect in black and white looking really sad, or they're like this, right? Or you know,
Yeah.
deep thinking. And I think Bjarke came around, and first of all, he was like the first architect I saw smiling and looked like he was having a good time. Good. And also, like the way they designed was like fun. It was playful, and I think that's one thing I definitely being inspired by is that more playful side of architecture. I think Chris Precht is also a good example of that. Like just his designs and the way he explains it is fun. Yeah, and then the other side of things, like I'm a big sports. I kind of grew up playing sports and stuff, so there's loads of um sports characters that you're inspired by. Johnny Wilkinson in the UK, of course, he won us the World Cup in the rugby world. International listeners might not know who Johnny
Yeah.
Wilkinson is. You got cricket players, athletics, like all that kind of stuff. So yeah, a bit of a mix. But architecture wise, I think everyone goes through those kind of romances with various architects.
On a separate note, I'd love to chat about cricket.
Yeah. Yeah. Freddie Flintoff, he's a legend in the UK. But yeah, a lot of cricketers go over to India, right? And
Yeah.
then they earn like some serious big bucks.
Yes, yes. And there is that tournament going on right now, like they're printing money. So
Yeah.
what happened when like you had your dream job at Big and what led you to go to Facit and lead that role? So can you?
Yeah. Yeah. So it was definitely a difficult decision. I was not looking to leave big or anything. I was not like particularly unhappy. Of course, if you've been at a company for 5+ years, of course, there's things that like annoy you about stuff. But for the most part, big it was a great experience. I also was very fortunate to work in two different offices, so I got to experience like two quite different cultures in big, which is quite unique. So each office in big is it's still big and we're joined by a global culture, if that makes sense. But each one is still quite unique on how it's run. And the London office and New York office are run in kind of very different ways, actually. So it's quite good to experience both. I think for me, I didn't, I was very comfortable in that role. I just built up a new team in London. So I got to experience like building up an office and a little design technology team from the beginning. The office was also booming. We were doing a lot of products, so it was quite intense. And I think there was probably an element of burnout. But for me, it was really so the story of me and Facet is I've always been really interested in housing. I really think that's somewhere where, as an architect, you can make huge impact in the world, not just building high-end houses, which is apartment buildings, which is a lot of the kind of things we did at Big, right? Big, expensive apartment buildings in New York, Canada, London, wherever, but actual housing. And I've always been really interested in how can I combine all of my background in like as a design architect, as a technology guy. I've also been into fabrication and actually making things. And so Facet is kind of like puts all of that together. And the story with Facet was, so when I go back to 2012 and when I graduated, I actually worked for Facet for a few years and sorry, for a few months even. And I'd done my thesis on architects becoming a digital master builder through technology, right? Like BIM to fabrication and all this kind of stuff. And I found this company fascinating. I'm like, these guys are the future of architecture practice and building. So I worked for them for a few months. And then what happened was one of my applications came back and they offered me an architecture job at IDAS, which was like a massive architecture firm in Hong Kong. And I was like 24. And again, it was a difficult decision, but I was like, go to Hong Kong, travel, go work for a big practice. Also, at that time, China was the equivalent to the Middle East now. Like China was just booming, and you would just. So I went over there, and the rest is history. And worked for Adidas and Front and Big, and ended up in New York, and came back to the UK 10 years later and reconnected with Bruce, who's the founder. And, I'd always kept in touch and like they got to a point where the 10 years I'd gone, they kind of perfected this technology and their building system and really established themselves as like an innovator in this space and building single houses. And, we was talking about how he can scale this up and we would have like a couple drinks at the pub, which is where innovation happens in the UK.
I
Hence
noticed that.
Petrification in the pub. This is where, the magic happens is over a beer, in the pub. And we got chatting and eventually the conversation came to why don't you join and help scale the company up. So we go from single houses to multiple houses. And I felt like the timing was kind of good. I'd been in practice for, 10 plus years. I'd established myself a little bit. And I'd also been running ATN on the side and learning about how to, running your own little business and you kind of learn certain things through there. So I just thought it was kind of like the perfect time, the perfect opportunity. Is definitely a bit of a leap of faith, leaving a job I loved, a great team. I think I was really hard to leave the team because they joined my team and, I left it. So they kind of had to rebuild it. And also, like, it's great people. I met my girlfriend at Big as well. So, I kind of left this very comfortable and this great place I was working. But yeah, I felt like the opportunity at the moment is so big to go and really disrupt
Mm.
the housing world, which if you're familiar with startups that have tried to do this, it's not a very successful hit rate. So many companies have gone bust trying to do this. And I always saw Facet. I'm like, I always even told people like these guys have the solution, go check them out. And so yeah, about a year ago, over a year ago now, I joined Facet Homes and I've been helping them scale up the business. As you said, I'm now a co-founder of what we just call Facet, and we kind of have two sides of the business. We have Facet Homes, where we're essentially becoming a tech-enabled house builder. We are using technology to deliver houses for developers, and for ourselves, for councils, the government, whoever needs to build houses quickly. And then we also kind of had Facet Technologies, which was more of the technology arm of the business. So let's say if someone wanted to lease our microfactories and use the technology, it was kind of more a separate entity for that side of things. And so both are continuing, and we just rebranded the website. You can check it out. And so now we kind of just call ourselves Facet now.
So many things you covered in that answer.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's a hard challenge, like building houses on this scale and is really, really difficult. You've got government stuff, you've got funding, you've got building the houses is kind of the easy part.
Yes.
But yeah, it's definitely a big one.
Yeah, and especially we don't have many success stories of like those kind of
Yeah.
startups and how do you do differently and have your playbook because it requires a lot of funding and patience as well. So that's a different game.
Yeah, so I think one of the unique things about Facet is it's 16 years old. So when you say it needs a lot of funding, I mean, one of the advantages we have is an existing business. And as long as we're building homes, we're turning over a profit. So we are one of the very few profitable prefab or modular or whatever you want to call it companies. So one of the things that we saw was every company that's tried this has taken on VC money.
Mm.
And if you're unfamiliar with VC money, it's venture capital money, which is essentially where an investment firm like gives you £1 million, 5 million quid, 10 million quid, whatever it is, and they say, here's a bunch of money. Let's take off like a rocket ship and grow. And the problem with that in housing is it's kind of VCs apply a kind of Silicon Valley mentality to this space where I invest on your website and it goes crazy overnight, right? And you capture 60% of the market, and you've gone from thousands to millions, right, overnight. Making things and making houses is a very different game. You actually want to grow slowly, because if you grow too quickly, you can, like a lot of these companies have done, a lot of them run before they can walk. So they actually sell the services before they've actually developed the technology. Then in order to kind of like make a return for these investments, they have to like, try and run and run and run and land projects. But the housing market is very different. Like there's booms and busts. It takes time to find land and take it through planning. And planning is not a straight A to B to C process. So not taking VC money has been like something we've kind of toyed with, because every company that has not done so well. There will be a point, I think, when we will take on like more investment like that. But yeah, that's one thing that's different for us, is like we're scaling an existing business. And I guess I could talk about what makes us different, if that's if that that is interesting.
Yes, please. Like we can go as technical as we want.
Yeah. So I think the other thing in this housing space, that a lot of people have tried to build homes out of a factory, right? And the analogy is kind of like, well, cars are made in a factory and you have a production line, and materials go in and your BMW comes out the other end of it, or your Tesla or whatever it is, right? And there are some analogies that are similar, in the housing space, but actually building houses out of factories does not really work. Or at least it's been proven in the UK to completely not work. And this is for a few reasons. Like, unlike cars, those are big pieces of, they either try and build like a shoebox and then stack the shoebox, or you build like panels and you build the houses out of the panels. And it looks great on site because like your stuff just appears and then bloop, 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 and then your house appears. But the problem is, when you think about that, is you're paying for this factory and you're paying for the machines inside of the heating and all this kind of stuff. So as soon as you build it, you need materials in and a house out, materials in and a house out, like every day. But the reality of construction is, your project gets delayed in planning, and now you have to delay it 6 months. And unlike a car where you can keep that production line going and park it in a garage, you can't really park like big building elements. And so this model of building a really expensive house, really expensive factory, which costs hundreds of millions of pounds, um, it's just, it doesn't stack up, right? It makes your house very expensive. And also, you think about, even in America, you build your factory in Texas. Well, you can only deliver like a few 50 miles around it. And then what happens when your product's in, Maine, or where you are in California, right? So our approach is, we've kind of pioneered the micro factory, which is where you put that technology that you might find in a factory in a small container. For us,
Yeah.
that's a CNC machine. And you send it to the building site. And this gives you a ton of advantages. One, the microfactory costs almost nothing compared to a fixed factory. Two, you have complete flexibility to build anywhere in the country you're operating in. You just send it in a container. Um, Three, you have complete on-demand manufacturing, which means like you can build based on the pace of what's going on the construction site. So, for example, the foundations are laid one day late, no problem. We can just start up the machine one day late. It's
Mm.
not all these things logistically coming from a factory to a building site. So yeah, it's like flexibility cost, and also it's incredibly scalable. Like, if we need to go and build in another part of the UK and we got another product, we can just build a new microfactory. Facet have kind of pioneered this. and the kind of financial aspect of it really stacks up. And so now we're really trying to scale it by scaling the microfactories themselves and also trying to build more houses and projects with multiple units and stuff like that.
God. And for to scale this, is it educational awareness among whole home builders is also a core component? Like if it works in UK, how is it? Is it to scale across geographies?
Yeah. I mean, the way that we build is we could build in the US because essentially we're just building a timber frame.
Yeah.
We're just using technology to create a slightly different one, a more intelligent timber frame. But ultimately, it's just timber frame housing, right? Which is in the US is very standard.
Yeah.
So it's very scalable. There is absolutely like an education thing, particularly when, so many companies have failed in this space.
Yeah.
You're kind of like, with this new thing, microfactories, and they're like, oh, a factory. Yeah, we've been down this road before, and you're like, oh no, we're different because of this, that, and the other. So yeah, there's a little bit of, I guess it's re-educating or rebranding
Yes.
the methodology. And I think, that is a challenge is, there's two ways you can do that is you convince other people to adopt your technology, which is always challenging, or you just go out and build with your own technology, keep it as an in-house process. And again, that's sort of the difference between Facet homes and Facet technologies, so to speak. So yeah, you either just go out there and disrupt, and then people start to pay attention because you've actually built some stuff, and hopefully that snowball grows.
Is there anything that keeps you up at night?
What about this? I mean, there's many things. Your mind is always spinning on new things to do, and now kind of um, part of Facet, and always thinking about how we're growing the business, surviving the business. So you're always kind of up thinking about new ways and new things that can happen. Same with ATN as well. We're always like thinking about new things to do, events that are coming up, and videos we're trying to make. And so yeah, I don't stay up at night worrying about what could happen. Obviously want to prevent bad things from happening, but stuff will go wrong. It's not about what goes wrong. It's about how you react to it and creating quick solutions.
How does the week in your life look like? How do you balance time and different? Because in
Yeah.
startup, you also wear different hats.
Yeah, so I work like my full-time role is at Biggs, kind of 9 to 5 or 9 to 6 is basically I'm at Facet working. I run ATN on the evenings and weekends, and then the tours and things like that happen between, like take some time off to go do the tours and things like that, and try and squeeze in some holidays in between it. But right now, life is by day, I'm trying to disrupt the housing world. By night, I'm trying to grow ATN and develop. ATN is basically an ed tech company.
Mhm.
We're an educational technology company. Um, and, always trying to grow things. We're growing the team slowly. So it's not just me. And we've got videographers now, advertising. So I'm trying to grow more of that. A lot of ChatGPT as my great colleague.
That
Yeah. And most importantly, always keep maintain working out like most mornings. I think that's one of the things that's kept me kind of sane over the years. You were talking about the hiking thing you saw me doing. I like to, you know, I think it's really important to keep that physical fitness to juggle these things.
nice. And are there any podcasts you listen to and you find like very educational and useful?
Yeah, I'm really into the All In podcast right now. All In is really good. It is, I don't if you know who it is, it's like
Ahmad, yeah, Jason.
yeah, it's four of these kind of investor entrepreneur characters. And what's interesting about it, particularly right now, is like they're at different ends of the spectrum of politics. One of them is literally in Trump's group. The other one's like very left. I think we need more of that. I have, of course, grew up watching Joe Rogan. He's definitely, has his ups and downs, but there's always like an interesting episode there. Stephen Bartlett, The Diary of CEO. I watch that every now and again. I think he's losing. It's getting a little bit tiring, but actually Andrew Huberman, I think it is.
Yes.
I does like fitness stuff. But yeah, I'm always looking out for good podcasts.
Is there anything which you haven't done as part of ATN, which that initiative you'd like to do?
Yes, and this was that's a great cue. We didn't set this up before, but I think one of the things I've been looking at and been thinking about, and we hopefully give it a go next year, is to do a conference. I've seen, there's many different conferences around the world, and lots of them do, slightly unique take on it, or they do something really good, other things not so good. And I think there's an opportunity for us to create quite a fresh conference. The simplest way I would put it is I would love to create the TED Talks of the AEC tech space. So
Uh,
gather gather some really top speakers. The theme would kind of be quite broad, so in computation, AI, all of the things, architect stuff, and gather like some of the best speakers to, present to you in person. And then later on, we would post that video months after. So it kind of lives online, try and span that physical world and the online world. So for example, if you're in India and you can't actually physically travel, you can pay to stream and watch it. So we're trying like, branch the physical world and the digital world. So yeah, that's something I've been slowly working on in the background. And hopefully next year, 2026, we'll be bringing you a conference.
I will sign up. That's a
Breaking
great.
news here, breaking news right now.
Is there anyone who you haven't interviewed on your podcast, but it's on your bucket list?
Yeah, we have a long list of bucket list. I haven't, Bianca, I've been trying to get for a long time. You would think it's easy since I used to work for the guy. Love to get Bianca on. We haven't had, and it's sort of deliberately, we haven't had the kind of big names like
Uh,
the Biarcas or the Norman Fosters and stuff like that. And the reason for that is truth be told, they're not the ones that are the technology guys in the office, right? And
uh,
that's why we try and in the tours, we go and speak to the DT teams, not like
yes.
the names behind it. But I think there are some founders that talk a lot more broadly about it. Obviously, Biarca is a good one. Um, Ben Van Bierkel, I think would be great to get on. Chris Pratt is a guy I really want to get on, and I really want to do a tour of him. We are talking, but we're trying to work out sometimes. But our next podcast should be Patrick Schumacher, so that'll be like kind of the first, um, big name of one of these firms. But yeah, there's loads of people.
Yeah, those are like great names, and so many people find and would look forward to it. So I'm excited for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, stay tuned. We're starting to work on the big names and the big characters.
Yes. And recently I saw the post that crossed 10K subs, so it's growing and growing. I wanted to touch base on you've been on the side of building tools and adopting tools and educating as part of the firm. A lot of startups who are trying to sell it to big firms sometimes find it struggle to either penetrate and do. So what's your advice on how are big firms and digital technology managers thinking about whether they should buy a startup solution or not in the design process?
Yeah. One advice, come speak to us at ATN and we'll get you on our podcast. And that's actually something we're doing right now because there's this new era of BIM 2.0, and that's what our next Pechakucha next week will be about. And there's a whole host of people trying to do this and like build the next generation of tool, which is hard. Like it's like the housing problem. It sounds like a great idea, but it's hard and it takes a lot of work to do it. I don't know. I think I'm still going through them all. So, if you haven't heard of them, the new kids on the block are like the Snaptrudes, Arcor, Motif is a new company I would definitely recommend to look into. They've just got like 40 something million pounds of funding, ex Autodesk guys. They've definitely got a very exciting prospect and team and everything. But there's also these other ones that are kind of uh, Conic, ECO AI, Inch. I think I mentioned Arco already. I don't want to forget. Giraffe Technology
Uh,
is a really interesting one. Cool is sort of like tying all of these things together. I'm definitely missing one of them that we're having, but I don't know. My advice would be like, I think a good example to look back at is Enscape. Enscape really came, and with all startups, timing is everything, and timing is not something you can time looking forwards. You can only realize it looking back. But Enscape is a good example where it was obviously the right time. People were kind of sick of V-Ray, where you remember the day where you had like 20 things you had to do just to get a blue sky. And you're just like, I just want a fucking blue sky before you've done anything. Enscape, I think, was a technology that like, it just made everything 10x
Uh,
better. Like everything was 10x faster. You could load it into Rhino really easily. It was easy to pick up. It didn't really require that much training and all that kind of stuff. So I think, focus on a technology or some niche that gets you that step by step, right? Building the next BIM platform is not something that will happen overnight, but I think there's certain things like, yeah, solving a problem that, architects actually need, making it graphically sexy. Architects are very fickle characters. Love, we're OCD about sharp lines and stuff like that. That's probably my
yeah.
biggest advice. Make a super nice UI. And just get it into the hands of as many architects as you can, as quickly as you can, and learn and iterate. Again, to use Enscape as an example, like Enscape's development was like a rocket, and then it seemed it got kind of bought by chaos, and then it's just flatlined.
Uh,
And now you've got the rise of kind of D5, for example,
uh,
that's really, is really starting to stand out to me. So yeah, those would be my advice is like get it in the hands of as many architects, have a good graphics, and work with not only big firms but influencers and all these different kind of characters in the AEC space.
I have last segment, which is rapid fire. You'll have to answer in less than 5 words, which is and very
Okay,
quickly. Your favorite architecture building,
I'll go the Copenhagen.
favorite restaurant,
Favorite restaurant? I'm not like a restaurant guy that for you're putting me on the spot here, but I'll just go with like a classic English pub. It's kind of broad, but it's more of a typology than.
any book which made a big impact in your life.
Do you know what? There was a recently I've been reading a lot of startup books. I think it's called The Lean Startup was a really good one recently for like entrepreneurial stuff.
Travel adventure which is in your bucket list.
Ooh, a tour of South America. That's definitely, it's been on a while, but
On
yeah.
motorbike?
I mean, that would be cool. It'd probably be quite dangerous in multiple ways, like falling off and like getting abducted or something. But yeah, I'll probably fly. But yeah, that would be the badass version.
We are at a time where Ollie is 60 years old. It's a weekend. What is he doing?
When I'm 60,
Yeah.
will I'll either be still working and enjoying it because I like to, as option one. Option two, I'll be retired in Sardinia, living in a boat or something like that. But option three, maybe by that point, I'd like maybe just building a few boutique homes using some cool technology, 3D printing, just kind of semi-retired. That would be kind of a good spot.
I see. If you were to write a book, what topic would you write?
Something along the lines of perseverance, just grit and sweat and perseverance, the pains of an architect or something like that.
Damn. On similar lines, like a course you would like to teach in uni.
One that I would like to teach. I mean, I would like to teach more in universities, but that's kind of why I started ATM. So I'm sort of doing, yeah. If I was to teach it, if I was to learn, I'd probably go back and study some like computer science thing or something like that.
Ollie, anything which we didn't cover in this interview and would like to end on that note?
No, I think we didn't touch too much on ATN, and I think if you guys are unfamiliar, check us out on architect.network. Where if you're in London, you can come to some of our events. We'll be doing online courses. We've got a podcast, as you said, Maya. So yeah, check us out. We're just an online platform trying to share knowledge around architecture and technology. Most of our content is free, apart from our courses. That's where we kind of make a bit of money and we reinvest it in new things, new content like the tours that we do. So yeah, check us out and hopefully we'll be talking soon about a conference.
Yes. And I attended, as at the beginning, I said the Pacha Pacha. First of all, the curation of people are great, and the amount of value of knowledge just in that short 1 2 hour period is incredible.
Yeah.
It's a great initiative.
Yeah, and I definitely would love to bring them. So we brought them internationally a bit more. So we took one to Copenhagen, then we took one to New York. I love taking them abroad. The challenge is we need like sponsors to help us go places. If you're in a part of the world and you want to see us come over, reach out and we can try and find collaboration. Like I think I'd love to do one in Dubai, maybe yeah, over in California we could come. Yeah, so hopefully we'll be bringing them more internationally.
Yes, please. Okay. Thanks a lot, Oli. It was great hosting you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and excited to see your channel grow. And we'll see you guys on the next episode and the next podcast.